Well, delighted to welcome Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. He's a royal commentator and also senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. Good morning. I keep saying it. Good afternoon. I don't know why I still think it's morning. Good afternoon to you, Rafe.
Afternoon, Julia.
Stop with doing a show for 5.5 years that was only in the morning. It's in your head. Rafe, thank you so much for joining us. Two stories I want you to talk about. First up, Harry and Meghan's Archewell charity, this big foundation. It was all about them sort of, we're no longer royals, but we're going to carry on being wonderful charitable donors and everything. Their charity has been declared by the authorities in California as delinquent because they failed to file their 2022 tax return or related costs on time, so they're no longer allowed to raise money or to hand money out. It's all a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, talk about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, you know? I mean, the Sussex team were convinced that their pseudo-royal Nigerian tour was a PR triumph. Just yesterday, CNN said that Meghan had arrived in Nigeria a duchess and left an African princess. Well, it takes 24 hours to go from princess to delinquent, apparently.
A big fall from grace.
Exactly.
But don't they have all these highly paid people? I know they go through staff. They basically lose someone every Monday, don't they? But don't they have all these highly paid staff who are top experts in these fields? Wouldn't one of them think, this might be our job, we need to file some official documents?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a huge turnover in staff in recent years. And the declaration of delinquency, as you say, relates to their failure to pay the required fees and file the right paperwork.
This is basic stuff.
But their response is quite literally, the cheque got lost in the post. I mean, you can't make that up. I didn't realise that was still an excuse.
I'm sure. Do you mean it was the butler with his silver salver and the cheque was put on it and somehow, I don't know, one of their racehorses ate it or something? I don't know. They've surely got better excuses than that. But it's all just a bit embarrassing and shows the level of incompetence, doesn't it? I'd love to know what you thought about, though, of that Nigerian tour, because, I mean, obviously they were greeted, screaming crowds, you know, everyone loves, you know, royalty turning up, but it was like a pseudo-royal tour. I couldn't really quite work out the purpose of it. Well, I just found it a little bit strange. I've always thought this, you know, you're going along there to sort of meet with people, often people living in great poverty, a lot of the people they met in charities and things, and there she is wearing, you know, a 10-grand bracelet, a 4-grand watch, well, that'd be too cheap for her, wouldn't it? You know, £4,000 handbags, handbags, £3,000 dresses. You think it's kind of rubbing people's noses in it, isn't it?
Well, it's also interesting, isn't it, that, you know, when she's in the West, Meghan is a great champion of women and the empowerment of women and so forth. And yet, you know, Nigeria is the global leader of female genital mutilation. Not a word, not even a diplomatic word was said about that sort of issue. You know, Nigeria has almost 1.5 or 1.6 million people living in slavery, you know, 8 in every 1,000 people. You know, they just accepted an award from the Robert F. Kennedy, the Ripple of Hope Award, for combating racism in the royal family. You'd think they'd have something to say about modern-day slavery in Nigeria.
You'd think. Maybe it was just a virtue signal too far. Who knows? Rafe, I also want to ask you about, you know, we talk about woke things with you often, and this is a bit of good news, although I think not good enough. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, has issued guidelines to schools, which is going out on Thursday, following a backlash from parents over what children are being taught about these sort of things like in the sex education. And, you know, kids being taught that, you know, there are 72 genders or 87 genders, or you could be non-binary, or you could be born in the wrong body and all of that stuff, which you and I know to be completely and utterly factually untrue. They're now being told that teachers can talk about these things, but they have to teach it as a contested belief rather than a fact. Does that go far enough, or should they just not be teaching kids this stuff at all?
Absolutely. Too little, too late. I actually gave a speech last month about dismantling the left's stranglehold of education, and I called for these sorts of reforms that you've just discussed. Also, of course, allowing parents to see the teaching materials of groups that are teaching their children, which they can't do at the moment. Yeah. But the fact that it's taken so long for the Tories to actually deal with this, I think, you know, it's as scandalous as it is shameful. You know, all of this woke nonsense happened under the Tories' watch.
Exactly. That's my thing. They don't get any brownie points for me for tackling it now, and they allowed it to happen for so long. This is one of the reasons why you've got kids thinking they need to bind their breasts or cut off their bits or take drugs, because it's been happening in our schools. Always so good to talk to you. Voice of reason, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, royal commentator, senior fellow at the New Culture Forum. Thank you.